How many people got educated in California, where one thinks that the general population is fairly highly educated. It was really quite amazing to see that happening everywhere. And what a great influence you have had, Elizabeth, and the two of you as a couple are amazing. So my question is, next year, starting on next year, what is your vision for how you're going to take your work together in the next chapter of your lives, and what can folks here do to support that? And also, folks can line up here to ask questions right here if you want to talk to these folks.
Thank you, Laura. Well, you know, this year has been a kind of interesting year for us. We had quite a tough primary, which we lost, but we had ran a really joyful campaign. And we know that that was in the redistricting, and you all understand that process. Thank you, everyone. It's very easy, you know, we're talking about to really transform and elevate whatever situation you're in. And we really had a tough race where, you know, Dennis was tied to sex offenders and ridiculous kinds of things that were put out on the media. But we had people, you know, as there are people out there who like to be, get bloodthirsty, let's say. And people like that were circling the campaign, and Dennis and I said, oh no. We never engage, we never re-engage, we take things to the highest level. So everything that we did was about talking about achievements and talking about potential and talking about vision and really an expression of our souls and hearts in the world. And so we felt that we ran a really wonderful campaign and experience there, and when things didn't turn out to make Dennis in favor of Dennis's win, we actually felt after 5 minutes that he'd graduated. That finally, in my heart, this man has created the most amazing platform in the political field. But now he'll be able to move, as of January, into an area where he's not constrained every single day. And I see this as an opportunity for all of us to work together to create a movement which is engaged with politics but is not limited by it. You're going to tell me off for saying that?
No. Look, I've been in Congress 16 years. It's an honor to serve. And at the same time, I will tell you that I realize that you don't need a certificate of election to be able to change the politics of this country. But you do need to communicate with people and to challenge the way things are. For example, we need to continue the work to try to force the labeling of GMO foods. If they can challenge GMOs in Russia, I think we could probably do it here. We really have the ability at last to challenge this thinking that takes us into war. I have to tell you something, that 16 years in Congress, seeing one war after another, seeing our country keep extending this idea that somehow you can reorder the politics of other places, and seeing how rancid things are back here at home. Excuse me, we have work to do here in our own states, and then when we can serve as a model, we'll export that all over the world. But we're not there yet by a long shot, and I reject this idea about the inevitability of war. It is so archaic, and it really needs to be challenged. This idea that we have the right to just send drones over all these different countries and press buttons and kill people, no. I disagree with it. And I think all over this country, there are people who reject this condition that we're in. And I'm not just, this isn't like some kind of platform speech, because I'm not running for anything right now. I'm telling you that this same thinking I brought to the floor of the House. And what I learned, Laura, in traveling the country for 2 different cycles, is that there is a unity that exists, and it needs to be called forward. It's just that our politics is so remote from the great concerns of the American people that we don't often have the chance to connect. That's why Elizabeth and I were so glad to be here. Just
before we move on, thank you. We've formed Kucinich Action, and so KucinichAction.com is where you can sign up, and we're really building a movement now, and we want to take this to its highest and greatest potential to really move and to support you in your own concerns in engaging with the political system and engaging with candidates, maybe with becoming a candidate yourself, because the way that we transform the political system is through engagement be it, as I said, through becoming a candidate yourself or through helping people who are running, who you believe in.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Next question.
Hi, first of all, I wanted to thank you both for your leadership. That's the first thing. You hear that? Now I'm going to switch back off of politics for a moment to medicine. I'm a retired physician, completely disgusted with the corporate medical system in this country. I just want to ask your experience, both your mom and Dennis, with the Crohn's disease and switching to a plant-based diet. How long did it take for you to see the transformation happen?
A few weeks.
Thank you.
Literally a few weeks. I changed my diet, and it was a dramatic change. I mean, I went from one type to another with like overnight. But the physical changes that I had experienced were dramatic and immediate. But I also want to add this, that I found that the diet that I'd been on, this conventional diet, absolutely wrecked my intestinal flora. And so I had to work to rebuild that. And because I couldn't, that was the toughest part. And what I found that a Chinese herbalist gave me a formula that helped to cleanse all the bad bacteria and rebuild healthy flora in the intestine. And I think more and more research is finding out right now it is as though that flora constitutes almost another organ within the body itself. So by those two things, the vegan diet plus protecting plus protecting my intestinal flora, Elizabeth just pointed out, sugar, bad news. I mean, I would, tea, a couple tablespoons, cereal, a couple tablespoons. But sugar was absolutely deadly. I had to get it out of my diet. Now, this is what I discovered for me. Others may be different. But in just a couple, within a few weeks, I started to see the difference. Now, look, I had major surgery when I was 20 years old. I don't need to go into details. Let me just tell you, it was major surgery. And the level of energy that I have right now, I mean, I'm running upstairs in the house, just running around all the time. It's just you get a tremendous amount of energy, tremendous amount of clarity, and it goes back to diet. So, yes. Mom, did you have anything about your own? You had experience with Crohn's. Did you want to add anything to that? Hold on.
I'd like to say that changing your mental and emotional attitude as well helped immensely, and very much getting back in contact with nature and living alongside nature. So I should suggest you all try and do that.
Aren't I lucky to have a mum like that?
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to go back to a little bit more of the politics, but also the media, and I'd like you to tell me some hopeful news, because when you talk about going out into the country and talking to the people and the whole war thing, I mean, that's all because of the media that we're hearing. We're hearing that it's inevitable and in terms of Iran, but I just don't see, I mean, the other media such as Mother Jones, such as Nation, I mean, the masses aren't seeing or aren't reading, aren't hearing about good things. I mean, they just hear the bad things and the election, and so I'm concerned about the media being controlled by just a few entities, and so that the world gets the bad message.
Well, before the messenger is the prime mover of the message, which is our politics, which still believes that we have some kind of a right to dictate to Iran or others how they should live. Now, I'm for nuclear abolition. When we want to talk about, what we do with nations that want to go into the development of nuclear power. I'm also for the phasing out of all nuclear power in the United States and around the world. That's okay. But the media, as a structure, is so massive, the corporate media, that sometimes we forget who we are. The social networking that goes on today, the social media which exists today, is a power that didn't exist years ago. People would have to get together in small meetings, and then someone would have to go around from town to town to discover that there's an identity of interest for peace, for social justice, and other things. But today, we have instant feedback. So while yes, the corporate media has a lot of power. Yes, they often serve as mouthpieces or as supernumeraries for governments which want war. The former Librarian of Congress, Daniel Borston, wrote a book about that, about how the media helped to accelerate the Cold War in America. Now, each one of us is a medium. Each one of us has the ability to get the word out. Each one of us, whether you're talking about Facebook or any of the other media that are out there, has the ability to get the word out. Now, we have to use that to challenge. Look, I've had experience in being shut out of presidential debates with NBC, having interest in, GE and defense contracts and building of nuclear plants. They have tremendous power, but they don't have more power than the collective expression of the people, which has the ability to get together. So we have to become more skilled in using this social media. We're not, I will refuse to accept that we're locked into this idea of we're so controlled. We're not. And we need to resist the idea. And we need to develop our own capacity to communicate with others. We need to be each other's friends, in effect. And we need to keep building those friendships all over the world, so that we understand this common unity that I spoke of. There's another thing there too. Jung spoke of the collective unarticulated consciousness. There's an unarticulated consciousness that is that is the milieu that we move in. It is social, it is intellectual, it is spiritual, and all we have to do is to evoke it, and then speak it, and then share it. And the potential for transformation is always there. Did you want to add?
The only thing I'd like to add, and I've done quite a bit of moving around the country in the last couple of weeks, is that so many people come up to me and say, oh, but they're so powerful. For example, I'm doing a documentary on GMOs, and they say, aren't you frightened? As with Dennis has just said, oh, but the media are so powerful. Oh, but they're also this. Oh, but the waves of pressure are so heavy. And yet the individuals I'm talking to haven't actually had that interaction with whoever they are. They haven't had the feeling that there's really this unknown force, and yet it's paralyzed people into feeling that they shouldn't act because these other people are so powerful. And so we have to remember this whole just emotional space of thinking that if something else is powerful and if something else is too big and if something else is winning, that it stops us from actually taking action, then they are very powerful because they have stopped our heart from beating, quite literally. So we have to be very realistic, and these people aren't coming into our daily lives, I pray. They are in certain cultural ways, but not intervening individually. So we do have the collective voice. We have all of the technology that we need, and now we just need to truly engage and work together to make the shift happen.
Before we go to the next question, I want to add something. I just saw an image as Elizabeth was talking. For those of you who have read that great political philosopher Lewis Carroll, in Alice in Wonderland, there's this, in Alice's Journeys, there's a moment where she is about to get done in by the minions of the Queen, who are these cards that are marching on her. And there's a moment where Lewis Carroll talks about human potential, where he speaks of Alice suddenly realizing who the cards are and who she is. And in that scene, Carol writes, Alice suddenly grew to her full size. She swept her hands out of these cards and said, who cares for you? You're nothing but a pack of cards. Cards suddenly became smaller. She grew to her size. I think It was the realization of the power of her own humanity that filled her to where she was able to assume her power and not empowered the projection or projected the power onto the cars. And in a way, we're challenged to do that every day. We're challenged every day to look at these external circumstances and be able to decide consciously whether or not we're going to shift our power, let someone else have that power, project the power, and deny ourselves our own humanity. Yes?
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Elizabeth, for being here. It was wonderful that you come out to speak with us. And secondly, for your courage to stand in the face of great opposition in Congress to speak the truth. My question, during your presidential campaign, I watched an interview with you and Ron Paul in the halls of Congress, and the interviewer asked you, if you were president, what would be the first thing that you would do? And you said, I would create the Department of Peace. What a novel idea. Where are you in that journey in the halls of Congress?
We have about 80 members of Congress who signed on to a bill to create a cabinet-level Department of Peace. Now let me explain this. On July the 11th, 2001, we came forward with this proposal. A national movement was organized around it. The idea is this, that since the United States spends more than all the other countries in the world combined building up this military, which then some want to use to project power across the globe, that we needed to look at what is the impulse in our own society that makes us home for war. Look at the examples in our own society and in our own homes, for that matter. Domestic violence, spousal abuse, child abuse, violence in the school, gang violence, gun violence, racial violence, violence against gays. The symptomatology of violence is really about our separateness from each other. So the idea of a Department of Peace is a hopeful way of not blaming each other, but of using the nation's resources to be able to help those whose mission in life is to be able to heal. To be able to heal families, heal individuals, to be able to help inform children about choices they can make in their interactions with each other. To be able to create a culture of peace. Now that idea, by the way, still remains. It is not only in this country, but all over the world, it's created a discussion about what our capacity is for peace. I don't know how far away we may be from having that institutionalized. But I will say this, that the structure of the military as institutionalized has helped to capture about half of the discretionary spending of the country. We got to be mindful of that. Institutions help to inform what a nation's about. I'd like to see America have an institution that informed peace. And excuse me, it's not the Institute of Peace, that shiny building that's right off the Potomac, because it's named Institute of Peace. And as Orwellian as that can be, they're involved in writing programs to help take over the governments of other countries. Please, that's the problem. If you just create a cabinet level, doesn't mean you're going to have peace. I'm talking about fundamental transformation of our culture using that as a vehicle. It's not the only way we can do it. Some of you have ideas of other ways that we can do it. Thank you.
So you're speaking about the fundamental transformation of our culture. I was wondering if looking at that in the context of men's healing, growth, and evolution, and women's healing, growth, and evolution might be an interesting lens to look through. And part of that conversation, if you could just also personally speak to what is it like to be a man on purpose and a woman on purpose, that would be great. And the reason I ask this question is it often feels as though if there's a powerlessness, a hopelessness, a helplessness that people might feel, it might have them not be engaged on personal levels, creative levels, and even spiritual levels. If they're not engaged, sometimes it's because they're not in touch with a sense of purpose. And I was wondering if you could speak to that quality of being, living on purpose, and if it relates where would the evolution of feminism have to be to support the healing, the growth, the evolution of men, given all the conditioning, programming, and manipulation that men's minds and consciousnesses are subjected to? Everything from porn to a culture of violence, to a culture of kind of kick ass, take names type of thing.
Thank you. And I really appreciate your work as well. I remember our long conversation about this. I do believe that there is a crisis of the masculine in our society in the way that you have described, where a lot of men really are thinking, what is it to be a man? And I'm saying this as a woman just from somebody who's interacted with a lot of people who are in this sort of space of not knowing, is it some, you know, raw beef eating, gun wielding man who goes and chops trees down and kills a deer at the weekend? Or is it a soft, gentle person who opens a door and, you know, what is it to be a man? So, and I think that as women have come more to the fore over the last decades, it has probably become a little more confusing to that type. But I think that, as we were talking about in the beginning, we're in a society and a time of great transformation. And the sexes are really trying to find different roles for each other and themselves. And something that I like to see with Dennis and I, as you can see, I'm a little taller than him and I refuse to wear, well, I always wear high heels. We come from different cultural backgrounds. He's obviously American and I'm British. He's an Irish Catholic, I'm an English Protestant. Everything that we do sort of flies in the face of convention, and I think that it is a joyful journey of trying to find out really the expression of the heart. One thing that I would like for women to understand in this development of our own roles in society and our movement into different spaces is to make sure that it is a balance, that it's not that, oh, now the women are going to take power and we're going to do that for a few hundred years and then the men will fight for it back again. That this really is about partnership and elevation and transformation on so many levels, and when we connect with our hearts, we're able to do that.
Our reality is socially constructed and culturally affirmed. Our culture has sent out signals about how the power is distributed. The nature of patriarchy in our society has sent the signals that men are supposed to be in charge. We found through our culture transformation that's not so, but we have to go deeper than that, because what it means to be male or female is much more than, you know, what one's personal anatomy happens to be. It goes deeper. It's a spiritual question. It's about the integration of masculine and feminine principles into one form. It's about being able to take whatever the notions are of what it means to be male or female, and to try to experience those notions moving through one's own self, one's own heart, and to avoid the stereotypical thinking that chains people into a dismal existence of dichotomization, of separateness, of alienation, and to understand that those principles can be lived through one form. And, you know, the thing that I find interesting about our politics is that the idea that somehow a man cannot be gentle, he has to be tough, or that a woman has to give that up if she goes into politics. You know, I have found through my time in Congress that, you know, there are women who are just as capable of waging war as men. That doesn't mean that makes them a great leader. It just means that some of the balancing of energies, which are essential to be able to merge with the larger humanity, there's still work to be done. I'm not suggesting that this is something that happens overnight. It's about our evolution is an evolution of spirit and an evolution of thought. And the thought and spirit move together. And we are always reimagining ourselves. And we always have to see if we can get to where we like to be. It's a constant journey. But your point is so beautiful, because it really, what underlies it is an understanding that we have to quit thinking of our society in terms of either men or women being in charge. It has to be about who we are as human beings and how we merge those energies through our own selves.
Elizabeth, like so many of us here, my respect, appreciation, and gratitude for your work and commitment is beyond expression.
Could you speak closer to the mic?
Okay, here's the mic. I'm Sally. I'm a public health professional with an undergrad degree in nutrition from Cornell University. Early in my career, I worked for the city of Cleveland Health Department in the Office of Health Promotion. There was 4 of us. And
sorry, could you speak up?
I'm a public health researcher as well, and advocate of good nutrition, advocate of sustainable agriculture. I quit my faculty job recently because I want to commit to getting this message out about raising a nourished population in a way that is sustainable. You have identified 2 major issues that we have. One is we're not building a healthy population with our culturally sanctioned diet. We are destroying the planet with our culturally sanctioned food system. And the word that you're currently using on your journey, and part of what you're doing to take care of your health, is a vegan diet, which I'd like you to think about this possibly as a policy kind of answer. We've identified the 2 problems. You've got your personal policy and your lifestyle. I'm a former vegetarian, 16 years, 8 of them vegetarian, 8 of them vegan. Unfortunately, I ran into some limits of my personal policy on how veganism could help my health and had to move past that.
Is there a question?
So the question is to invite you to think about the message about building healthy people and building a healthy planet through a healthy diet. And for not everyone is the vegan policy going to be the perfect fit for the long term. So please consider the idea of things like choline in the diet, which is supplied by eggs, is so helpful for pregnant women and nursing mothers. There's a lot of research coming out of UNC Chapel Hill about that from the chair of the department there. I'd just like to encourage you to keep on this path of bringing nutrition so we can build healthy people and build a healthy planet. And first we have to nourish people, and we have to be aware of how we can grow food that's nutritious, and the GMOs and the whole green thing.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments. And for those of you who are or aren't engaged with what's going on in Washington, as in the capital, Washington, last year or this year we were meant to have the Farm Bill reauthorization, massive bill, almost $1 trillion in spending over 10 years. So this really does create the culture of our own eating habits. It's money that supports the growth of certain foods and that also can inhibit the growth of others. And so I've been working with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine for 3 years now, and for a couple of those it's been on the Farm Bill, and really looking at where our subsidies are going and looking at transforming that, looking at who has access to certain grants, looking at organic agriculture and some of the inhibitors that have been put in place to make it more difficult for organics to come online. So this is a big bill that I would suggest that if you can engage, that would be great, because they didn't actually get to reauthorize it this year. There was so much political tension around the subject that they'll have to pass something, I think, in the lame duck, but I think that the main bill is going to be passed next year. So we've got time to engage on that. We've got time to message on that. Now, every congressional